Hi, everyone. Welcome to Precog Time, episode 4. We're talking to Effy Xiaofu Wang, and she is, and her theme is Kaleidoscope, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Effy is phoning in from Shanghai, where she's been for the past long time, at least months.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I met Effy first through a couple people who knew her at Micah, including our friend Jarrett. And then later, Effy was in paint school when I was doing a little bit of work for them, and got to know like how great and interesting an artist she is. And then Effy and the artist Simone Parney collaborated on a video piece and text piece for the latest issue of Precog. And so we decided to invite Effy to come on and talk to us a little bit about her work and also what life has been like. So, as always, I guess we will start out just asking you how you are, how it's going, and if you could give us a sense of what life is like for you right now, like what we can look forward to. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. So I moved to Shanghai officially around November. So I have my own place. I live in a neighborhood that I really like. It's quite old. I live with old neighbors, so it's very quiet. Everything is kind of cheap around here, and I work in my living room. So not long after I move in, it's start to have this pandemic, and I kind of limit my activities inside, which is not very different from normal life. I paint in the living room, and I did a lot of readings, which I didn't have many chance to do in the past, and also taking care of plants. And a month ago, I started to study German. So I have a German class in the morning, every 8 a.m. to 11:30. So I think I'm being productive and healthy. I'm not going insane, and and also it's the best time of Shanghai. The spring is very pretty out there, and so far so good.
And you were talking about before your parents, that they're in the middle of the...
Yes, my parents live in Wuhan, so I supposed to visit them like right before the pandemic, but I kind of heard what is going to happen, so I canceled my ticket. I stayed in Shanghai because at that time it's around the Chinese New Year. It's around so it's been like 5 years that I haven't got a chance to really meet my family to celebrate the New Year. And so that so the first time when I told my mom maybe I can stay in Shanghai, and my mom is kind of unhappy, and she's like, no, you have to come back. It's been so long, you haven't seen anyone. But then things just changed like dramatically. So my parents, so I called my parents in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. that they're going to lock down the city at 10 a.m. So please just be aware, just let people know, because my grandma was there. So they sent my grandma home, and at 3 a.m. So it's like in a movie. And then they just trapped in their workplace for since January 23rd. So it's been so even right now they're still cannot allowed to leave because the place they work, my father work in a jail, my mother work in a mental health hospital. So it's a place, both of the place has the risk to get a cluster infection. So so they're not allowed to leave yet, which is good for them too. It's safe.
Yeah.
It's very intense though.
It's very intense.
Especially having to stay on site.
Yeah.
And so while all of this has been happening, what has your studio life been like? Have you been relating to even making art and?
Yeah, so for the very beginning, the first months, I don't think I can do anything. I'm following news that very intensely because I feel my parents are too close to the center, so I follow news for them, and also I'm not 100% sure how transparent what we hear about what's going on. So I'm very cautious. Um, so the first month I just checking the news and also it's thinking about myself and the world and what's going on and what's the relationship, like what's that mean to be a human? What's that mean? What is virus? Like the micro versus the world, and it's kind of good chance to have philosophical thinking, and that also accelerate what I believe in art and what's my real interest in the subject that I interest in art, which is about the layers, like how to let one layers unfold the other layers and to allow the other layers escape from its origin. So I think right now the world is kind of showing us directly. So that's what I get from the pandemic. But also it's I'm the person that I don't really I spend a lot of time in studio to read and to paint. So it's good. It's a good change. It's not super hard for me to stay inside and just work. And so the heartbreaking part is to seeing people are dying and that part. But the good part for me is it's good to know that everyone else is slowing down, and maybe for the lucky ones who are healthy, it's chance for them to think about their relationship with the earth, the planet, and themselves. So yeah, and I kind of be productive during this time.
What have you been making?
So I've been making paintings finally because I've been travel so much, so I don't really have like a place to work. I can only work in a portable, like a sketchbooks. But right now it's a so I have some paintings can work in a living room, which is not the ideal size that I would like to work. I prefer work bigger size, but so far I'm happy with that. I still have the privilege of access to my studio, just so I'm already grateful. So I also made some drawings, some little paintings, some writings. I try to write notes and diaries during this time, and also been reading a lot.
Are you in communication with other artists in Shanghai?
Yes,
And
so
how are they dealing with, are they have access to their studios or?
so I don't. So the strange thing is I don't know many painters in Shanghai. They kind of are who working with video, who work with like a more like a conceptual artist. So they yeah, some of them have like a studios who live in maybe a little bit suburb area of Shanghai, and sometimes it's so I think at the beginning, everyone else is like fighting to each other. It's like, should we posting things and should like argue with each other about what should we post, what's really going on, and like in a anxious status. And then people start to settle down a little bit, get used to the situation, and start to work. And many people have been, so I never seen any time, like any moment in China that so many people are reflecting themselves into what's going on. So many good articles, some of them deleted. So, but still, many people are writing and many people are working with it, but not like directly to what's going on, like a painting about the virus or this situation, more like really thinking what's going on and thinking about their relationship, their work, and to life and um, to the world.
I have a question. When something gets deleted, how do you have access to it? Does it just get copied so many times that eventually you can find like a hard copy or something?
Yes, so I have a, so normally it's been deleted, and whoever read it. Whoever didn't read it, they lose the chance. But you can always find a copy somewhere else, but maybe you have to use
But you have to.
VPN. Yeah, you have to use VPN, things like that. But there's one time there's an article being deleted, um, and which is very amazing. It's an interview. It's an interview for the doctor who kind of like a very beginning, who know the situation. So it's an interview for her, and it's been deleted, and then it come out another version of the same article and then it come out with different languages, like English. So it finally come with 55 different versions of the same articles. So they have English, they have like a French, they have Spanish, but also they have an emoji version. They have like an ancient Chinese version. So it's like they have insanely different versions, and they have image versions, which is like a live art collaboration art. It's pretty amazing to see that. Yeah.
That sounds like the way that you're describing how that article had its life sounds a little bit like the way you organize your thinking in your work. You know, like you have paintings, you make like poems, there's always writing included, you make videos, but it's like this kind of like you're making paintings that look like paintings on the surface, but that's also not the entirety of how you think about painting or your life as an artist or practitioner of art. So I was wondering if we could, kick off the studio questions by asking you why you suggested Kaleidoscope and like how you think about the kaleidoscopic in relationship to your studio and how you make paintings.
So I feel first, so I was thinking about how to, so I use painting as a tool to practice my thoughts about the structure of the world. For example, so if I'm thinking about the truth, what is the truth? What's the structure of the truth? I think the truth is a whole. So when you look into it, it's like a trap, and it's not something like a positive there. So something can peak. It's a whole. So it's the deeper you look into it, the more you will find out, and the deeper the hole is. And the kaleidoscope is like what's waiting in that hole. So it's like when you see the colors, and it's like an overlapped reality and falseness, and it's like pretty much like what my experience with today, the world, and if I try to, I think it's very hard for me to concentrate on certain things or to think about that there's one idea that can apply the whole world, and that's how the world was ruled by this core. I think the core doesn't exist; it's a negative space, so it's a whole. That's kaleidoscope to me. It's like things are forming and the things are disappearing at the same time. So the layers and the layers, they're transparent, they allowed each other to appear, and also they covered each other. It's supposed to get lost in there. So the purpose is to get lost.
And like the paintings are where you stop inside of this like transition through lostness.
I think more and more, it's so it's also applied to the process, like how I paint. I start with random things. And then I have to react with my first mark, and I keep reacting with it. It's like, okay, what's happening today? I kind of know what's going to happen, but I didn't know exactly what's going to happen. So I have to react every time, and what's going to make me to make the choice. So it's have to do with my personal history, but also has to do with the present, the moment, and when I finish the painting, so I can finally step myself outside of this experience. Then when I look at it, it's a kaleidoscope. So it's like I'm part of the kaleidoscope. So I have to be part of it. And it's also like to think about the mathematic term, the set. So there's a set, and there's each present that are inside of the set, and it's like all the present form my whole life, and I'm inside of the set. And in this set, I was imagining myself that I can step outside of the set, and to think, to look at this set and with me inside of the set, and I would think, okay, the whole set is meaningless, but for the me inside of the set, I think every present is meaningful. It's like that kind of chance. The painting gives me the chance for me to step outside of myself. It's also a model for how to live a life.
Effy, can you talk a little bit about the personal, like you're always documenting your life, and you included some of these images in the slideshow. Can you talk about why they're important to you?
So I think I start to use this kind of language, like what Gabby is playing right now, is I put my paintings and also the images, the documentary that I collected, and also some of my writing with my painting together. I think they're kind of a reference of my painting. It's a description without the words. But they are the references of how they affect, like here it's the explosion, and here is the water, and it's when it's lifted by the air and the explosion. So sometimes there's a lot of things that are happening in my paintings. They kind of have the explosion form. So it's a symbol for me to also it's the current world, it's a nightmare, or it's a celebration. It can be both, and it can be either one. And also for example, once I saw a new, like a clip from the Instagram. It says that in Mexico there's a firework factory that exploded. I think that's something related to my work too. So they kind of so my painting helped me to organize my thoughts, but also this images references help to form the thoughts of the painting. So they kind of become one thing.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about now that you were so restricted, but in the past you've been traveling a lot, and then that I think there's a lot of movement in your work. You know, you're talking about the firework and the gesture. Like what, like how does dance, like influence or gesture and movement inspire you?
So I think so when I didn't start to make paintings for a long time. So I just start like painting for myself like a couple years ago. So at the very beginning, I think gesture is something I start to access a painting. Like it represents the speed. It's also something that if I make a movement, I can connect my body with the surface. So I think for a long time, I feel I'm a stranger of my body. How do I realize that? Is I went to see, for example, I went to see a concert and I see the people singing and screaming. I feel, wow, I would never be able to do that. I would never be able to feel comfortable to use my body to scream. And also for a long time, my body living in the city. So I never really like run, and I don't have to care about anything. I don't have any chance like that. But so when I make painting, it's at the beginning, soon I realized that, okay, everything is carefully painted. Everything is slow. It's like how everything is careful, thoughtful. I think that's how I treat my life, like how I cross the street, how I how I access information. So it's like I need to let this craziness, the thoughts, like spontaneous, like irresponsible gesture, I have to let it out. So sometimes I just make a mark. That's I'm a stranger, I'm an alien of. I make a mark and I see how I respond with it. So that's helping me to access the stranger part of me.
I feel like that kind of leads us into thinking about how you make marks and gestures actually move too. And I feel like now is a good time to show a little, like a section of the video you worked on first alone and then later with Simone for issue 5 of Precog, which was Bubble Orchestra. So I'm just gonna cue that up. And we'll watch the movie.
Oval and evening, bodies of a bad translator, like myself, how this artichoke unfolds, fluorescence, clinging like a fiery ball of smoke, scoped out of all grips, moving backwards, forwards, to get to the heart of the matter, heart of the thing, leaf, oil, spring. Light above my head crackles and swells. It is burning, big as balloon, block of midnight in June. Memory snags, no connection, entering the world that hangs porously on. Thread of life passes through me vertically and I feel it in me, pulling in opposite directions, growing repeatedly. Elongating pools of mystic mind plastic, rubber what I am doing, I overrode against dropped small images I can't get off. It could almost be strange. It is almost not. There is fine tunic of radar. I keep getting moved around by strangers' eyes, or they keep getting moved around by mine. They have no satisfying angles, no pure margin. I hear their humid speech, their live chameleon words, borrowed, and there are fingers in them, similarly, gaps in place of the crotch.
So we'll stop for now. Something that Flo and I were talking about when we were looking through your PDF was, and sort of thinking about your work, was how much of an influence film has on the way that you think about images, the combination of images, and we were like, we kind of were like, is Effy really into Godard?
That's true.
So we're kind of wondering how you think about, like how you think about film and cinema and sort of who some of your influences are, and then maybe if you also have some quarantine movie recommendations for all of us.
Yeah, okay. So yes, I do. I think I did enlightened by Godard and the way he tells the story and how to be political. Like a structure in his film, he seems like be able to melt all the aspects into one thing. Like a rude person refuse to please the common sense and the logic. And especially for the Weekend, which is my favorite movie from him. And so, and the story, the characters' minds will always be shown in the end, especially from that one. Anything happens all at once. A lot of things happen all at once, and it's very intense. It's like what we are experiencing right now, the world, and the story and the characters doesn't have to work for a story or work for the character. It's like a cinema leaking from the lines and the surface, and it's floating. So unfolding the reality, which has a structure like the mind. So I think that's pretty much like a crystal. It's like how to deal with a timeline which is a line. It's like from the beginning to the end, but also with a crystal. I think that's very inspiring to think about that aspect. So also it's more naturally to how I think, and it's constantly interrupted by other things, and like the screens, like the phones that we use, it's popped up, and suddenly everything else changed, and everything is the participation of the moment. So I decided to try another way to talk about my art. So that's the PDF that you see. And also about the movie. Okay, I've been watching a lot of Eric Homer. Is that how to pronounce Homer? So during the quarantine, his movie is the only movie I watched. First, I like him. The characters that's always questioning and always like a whatever works kind of attitude, and no judgment on the intimate relationship. And it's always very beautiful, the light, the nature, and people have a walk and talk about how they understand about the relationships. Yeah, it's would be my recommendation, to focus on small things, one thing, the relationships, and it's a big thing too.
The way that you talk, the way that you were just talking now about the crystal and sort of Godard and Romer, makes me think about, especially what you were talking about earlier, the way that politics is allowed it to be included inside of this framework. Like it seems as though almost making an argument for allowing for politics or political information to be like folded into our sensorial experience of the world, which is in itself kind of aesthetic. You know, it's like our sensations, like our feelings, the way we interact with like the here and now, the present, our sense of the future and the past has an aesthetics, like it has a sensibility, and we should allow for politics to intervene or like be included inside of this aesthetic as well. I don't know, it's just sort of an interesting way of thinking about the role of politics. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's a very big part of my life because I have to constantly dealing with this the reality that formed strongly by the politics here, which also it's not it's so if I so I feel in China with the censorship, if I talk like a male, like a directly, like a oh, I have to do this, you can't do that, it's not going to work. It's because that's how the Communist Party started. So it's not going to work. So I have to figure out the other ways to navigate these situations. So first, I'm not a role of critic for the politics of China. I think I'm definitely not doing that because I will put myself in dangerous situations. But I'm just an individual, and this is unavoidable. So what should I do? I think this is I think Godard is very inspiring. He said something like, the matter is not how to make political film, but it's to make film politically. I think it's like, for example, like talking about the feminism. So it's not always work if like a protest is not always work, which is not allowed here too. And how to be feminist in a feminist way. So like how to perform is also part of the idea. So at the same time, to think about, okay, I'm good at painting, or thinking through painting and making videos and writing. So and it's almost like every single things become political, like how I interact with people, everything we see, like how this compound, these buildings are built. Like for example, in Beijing, the road is giant. So sometimes it took me 40 seconds to across the street. And that part is political because it's a city that's built with the goal of efficiency. So they build this metropolitan, and people come here to work, and millions and thousands, millions of people. And the road was built for the vehicles. It's not built for human body. So but here, in New York, the road was built by the measurement of the steps. So it's more like and also the community was formed by its own history. But people are allowed to, okay, I don't want this company coming to my neighborhood. So it's all recorded at the present. But in Beijing, so it shows the power of the government. If they don't like this area, they can tear it down today. And they can build a new fantasy tomorrow. So it's all recorded there. And for me personally, I think it's very nice to see this part. But I don't enjoy to live there. But it's also very important to see that. Then I can choose where I want to live. And also the air pollution. So it's and also like how during the pandemic, the air is wonderful. The animals, the birds are happier. Yeah.
Effy, can I ask you about language?
Yeah, of course.
translation? Because I feel like you're always translating from Chinese to English, or now you're learning German, and you're also, you know, you're talking about trying to speak in a visual language that's, you know, different ways of speaking. So can you talk a little bit about what that process is like?
Yes. Okay. So I think that's very that's the gap that I first gap that I can see, so I can open it and realize there's another world behind the language that we are speaking. So I went to the US in 2015. At that time, I wasn't really good at English. So there have always a trouble of understanding people or express what I want to say. And at that time, my other senses got extremely sensitive. Like I kind of learned to feel what you want to say instead of to really hearing what you want to say. But also during the the critique of in the school, like I really have to think about how to talk about my art, because I kind of refuse to explain my art in a way that I'm interested in this, because I don't know, I don't think I'm that concentrated in one subject. So I have to find out how to talk about it, which is make more sense to myself first, then make more sense to the audience. And also, the more English I speak, the more I realize, wow, everything sounds so, the world is very different because the thoughts really formed by the language. For example, this is an example I like to use when I describe Chinese and English. I feel there's a misunderstanding in China when they learning about the West history of the art, because there's one really important word that we are missing in my language. It's perception. And so I think perception is a word that I really like, that it's implied that I'm the center of my perception. I am the center of seeing. So the things I see become the world, like it's part of my reality. But in Chinese, they have this perception, but they translate into something feels like sensation, 知觉. So it's not so close to the English perception. So so then it's like the Wittgenstein say, okay, the form, the language is really form the thoughts. Yeah, so I think that's like something that motivate me to learn languages. And now when I learning German, I'm studying these rules. So it's like, okay, that's how they think. And with the Chinese, it's relatively more flat. But with the German, they have more categories. So it's kind of like create a chance for me to step outside, like I'm someone don't speak, so I can observe all these different languages and to see, wow, that's how people think, and that's why they have this culture, that's why they make decisions like this.
Beach?
Can I ask you about when you say walking greenly, what do you mean? Like, I feel like it pops up, the color green, and then also about the influence of color.
Yes, I think also that's it's a quote that we read from the paint school, but I think that's a very good example of when language liberated from its function. Like a green, especially with the color, they are relatively neutral. They don't really have the hierarchy, or it's hard to be defined. And so it's walking greenly. It's like a key how to be free. So it's one thing is like how to be free, and also yes, I made a lot of painting that have greens in it lately. I think this is my green period. I used to have a pink period. So, I think thinking about colors also related to my experience in the paint school with Gabby. We talk a lot about green, the colors in a different aspect, the scientific aspect, and also the metaphysics and physics aspect. It's something also with the it's something not really work with the logic. That's something everyone can perceive differently. And with this to think about like a gender, to think about all the political terms or the logical terms, it just will change the world in front of you. So I think that's a step go into the liberation of the mind.
And can I ask you another thing? When you document yourself painting, you always have really good outfits. So can you talk about fashion a little bit? Because I feel like the way you dress is very intentional, and I'm like interested. So.
Okay. Yes. I think it's like my preference, which shows in painting, but also shows in my outfit. And I feel like for 18 years, I have to wear uniforms. By that time, I feel who I am is kind of blur. It's also I need to borrow something to help me to figure out like, oh, okay, I try this thing on, see if I like it. Who I am with this outfit, and it's like give me a chance to be the person I don't know. Then for a while I will know it. And yes, I do like to, for example, if I by myself, I dress whatever. But if I'm meeting people, I like to dress with the to match the situation. But I do have a strange taste, I guess. And it's a fun part of life. Yeah.
So how do you match the situation? Like, can you give an example?
Like right now it's
or like, is there any iconic outfit that you're like, okay, I'm going to the cave?
Oh, I think my pigtail is kind of iconic. I kind of do it first because I have a flat hat. I think I look better with pigtail, but also I kind of like it because it's a little crazy to have pigtail for my age, but but whatever. So it's like
a problem. Has anyone ever brought that up, like, and been like, time to?
No, but I just like to watch, for example, my parents' reaction, like, oh, and something like that.
Effy, when we were in paint school, like there were different readings for each session, and like for instance, the text that we read that suggested that we treat color as an adverb. So that's like greenly, walking greenly was like, don't think of color as a noun or as an adjective, as a descriptor, but rather as like a descriptor of motion or something in movement. But like for that class, you not only wore all green, it was like different shades of green and patterns, and like maybe there was a worm also. Like I can't remember, but there was like a snake or a worm.
Yes.
Relation.
Yeah.
Yes. Or like when we were reading Wittgenstein, you came like wearing like totally prismatic, reflective stuff. That was like, so yes. It was like on theme related. I mean, that one was very straightforward because it was a color. The theme of the meetings and the sessions was texts about color in art, and so it was easier to kind of make it match. But your outfit always really correlated both formally and conceptually with the readings. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
And wait, Effie, before we open up to questions, can you talk a little bit about time travel, and maybe we can show that little really short clip that you sent? And that's a new video you made, right?
Where is that?
In an email.
Okay, I'll look it up.
I think it's with the same as with the PDF.
Okay.
Yeah. So I made this 15-second videos 2 days ago and talk about the time travel. I think time travel is what I mean is it's the screens. So that's how we access to know what's going on. The screens, so you don't have to be there to know what's going on there, like the news and how the millions of news form the reality to me. And so it's like a present. So I talked about like our eyes used to be designed to see the things that's just in front of us. But right now with the screens and the endless realities, so the point that will be the perspective point disappeared. It's not there anymore. And so it's so our visions will become as much as like the truth. It's like the endless. It's endless. It's like capitalism is endless. And that's what I mean, time travel. I don't think everyone is physically get ready for that. That's why we feel anxious and depressed if we perceive too much information. And that's time travel without moving that much, but what's in front of are moving. It's like sitting in a train, but there's 100 trains go past at the same time.
I have the clip. I have the video.
我们的双眼曾经只为看眼前之物，如今视野里没有那个消失的透视点，视野像真相一样是无尽的，而身体却只能待在一个地方。认知可以穿越时空，身体却未能走至道场。认知越宽广，身体便越不自由。你们都做好了时空穿梭的准备吗？
Great.
Should we get questions, Gabby?
Yeah, so I was going to say, if anybody has a question right now, formally, you should send it to me via the Zoom chat, and I'll ask Effy, and then in a little while, we'll just open it up for casual conversation. But now's the time with questions. Send them over.
And Effy, so right now you're working on paintings. What are you working towards? Any exhibition? Are there going to be exhibitions? Do you know what it's looking like over there?
No, I don't work for exhibition right now. I hope there would be exhibition for me, but I'm not sure. I think the galleries is kind of not sure as well. Many exhibitions get cancelled and during this time, and galleries shut down, and yeah, sadly, but to me it's okay. I like to work for myself. So yeah, what I'm working right now is just see if I can get this the painting that I'm working on right now. Oops. Yeah.
So, and you have a couple paintings, right, in the room?
I have like 3 big ones.
Yeah.
And some small ones. Oops.
But you like to work bigger usually?
Yeah. I also ordered 2 more canvases. One will be a little bit bigger. And also I work on some drawings. Yeah. Also I just start to use acrylic because I work at home. I can't really use oil. It's a new media for me, so I can practice the layers, and it's like a having fun period. Let's try this, let's try that, and yeah.
Great. Okay, well, if there's no immediate questions coming in, I'm just gonna let everyone unmute themselves and we can just have a conversation. Kelly, Flo, do you have anything else you want to ask?
No, I think that's all my questions. Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to ask more like if you give yourself sort of time constraints for how long you work on a painting, if it's about sort of that moment and the layers, like do you ever go back and sort of like rework the paintings, or do you sort of like work on them for that period of time?
Yes, I think because with this acrylic, I can always add on things. So sometimes I cannot help. I just want to add more, and more. And then I feel, okay, this painting bad. I can't touch it. And then I have to, like, after a while, I thought, okay, I have to make something there to make it alive again. Because it's so easy for me to overpaint one thing. Because I used to be a very fast painter, always like a giant painting, can make it in 5 hours, something like that. But with the oil, it's like that. But now it's like, it's different. The feeling that the paint is very different. It's easy for me to work on it for a very long time. So now, because I have a German class in the morning, so I try to work every afternoon with the light. It's good. But for each painting, how long I'm going to work on it. Now I'm learning that how to stop. I have to stop at a certain point if I think it's okay. But for the painting, how long, the specific time for it, I don't really have a rule for it.
Okay. How's everyone else?
Yeah, everyone, you're free
to
to
talk, you know.
You can talk. But thank you, Effy, thank you so much for joining us and for having a conversation and letting us like look through all of your works and ask you questions.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. But if any of y'all have anything you want to say, I can also like mass unmute people, and then you can.
Yeah, just I think that you should do it.
I can do that. I'm just unmuting everyone.
Okay. Effy, what are you gonna do with the rest of your day? Because you're just waking up, right? Like it's 6
Yes. So I will have a class at 8. So you're 8 p.m. And for the afternoon, maybe I will take a nap. But maybe I'll feel good. So I probably will paint or read. But now it's the German class got really hard. So I feel I have to go back to digest what we learned every day. So the teacher wants to give us like 14 rules of the every day. So it's like crazy, very intense.
And when
you're so early in the morning right now.
When you do your class, is it just you?
Oh, it's like a Zoom class. So have 20 people.
From all over the world?
From mostly China. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
How's your life?
Okay.
Hanging out.
Trying to figure things out as well. I feel like the disinformation thing, trying to find information that's accurate is also difficult here, even though there's democracy. Is like, every day I read like 5 different newspapers to try to find out what's happening, you know?
Yes, that's the thing I was just thinking about yesterday when they, so you know that the Chinese government sometimes will hire people to leave comments on the social media to make it look like this opinion is dominant. So I feel that's like a capitalized of comments. I don't know how to describe it, but it's definitely like a machine. So for each individuals, if you want to compete with comment, they make money. They make money.
But every time you comment, you get like $5.
Yes, but if you want to fight with that kind of comment, you have to alienize yourself. It's like a capitalization in the social media. And so they occupy the territory there. It's like, okay, now we are losing, unless we turn ourselves into that machine type of language to adopt their language. Otherwise, we won't really win at but the things that they say a lot of time are very insane. So
Like what?
It's like a Fox News, but Chinese version.
So are they anti-America? Is that like, what's their
Yeah,
like?
that's yes, like a nationalism ideas and to create hate and to blame other people's
For what?
for bound people together here by teach you to hate all others. Like
so
that.
you don't like question the government.
Yeah, like a very much like a nationalism ideas. Crazy, which is. And yeah.
Are they listening right now?
What's the question? The first part, I missed it.
The government.
Oh, what are they hiding right now?
No, are they listening to us?
Listening to?
Like to this conversation, is the government like listening to your conversation
Oh,
right now?
I don't know if they can track English very well. I don't know. I don't know. So I've been very cautious. I didn't really say anything like to put myself into trouble. I'm aware. Like I won't be surprised if they're listening right now. But I'm nobody, so I should be fine. Like if I'm very famous, I have to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's safety and anonymity as well. It's like safe to not be famous.
Yeah, it's safe to not be famous. Definitely.